August 2025, question 23. The question looks very short, the one that they did the other sitting. You are the management accountant of Malos Tech Limited, a company that produces two types of products, alpha and beta. The company wants to understand the cost structure and profitability of both products, as well as their break-even points based on the following data for the months of July 2025. Product alpha and product beta. We have the selling price per unit in shillings. We have the variable cost per unit also in shillings for product alpha and beta. Fixed cost has been given also in shillings. The unit sold 1.5 and 1.2. Required for 6 marks. Prepare a contribution margin statement and net profit for each product. Calculate the break-even point in units and revenue for both product alpha and product beta. Calculate the margin of safety in units and percentage for both products. Perform a sensitivity analysis by calculating how a 10% favorable in all product data other than fixed costs for both products affect the contribution margin and break-even point. So you can see a total of 20 marks. We start with the first one, the solution. The first part of the question. And this is solution. Solution. Now prepare a contribution margin statement and net profit for each product. So this will be contribution margin statement. A contribution margin statement and net profit for each product. And we have product. The first one is product alpha. The second one is product beta. Then let us start with the units produced. Product alpha 1,500. 1,500, that is product alpha. Product beta, you just scroll across for you to get the one for product beta. Now after the units produced, we want the variable cost. We also have the variable cost per unit, or before variable cost per unit, you can bring on board the selling price per unit. Alpha selling price per unit is 700. Beta selling price per unit has also been given as 900. Variable cost per unit, I believe you can drag down. Then this can also be dragged down, but now I want them to be negative. So negate. Equal sign negative. Then variable cost per unit of 300. All these two numbers, there are values. So values. So if you click on them, then they should give you values. So they are all values. So which means this is now equal sign negative. Then I click on the 300. Now it's 300. Drag across. Then contribution per unit. Get the contribution per unit. Contribution per unit will be equal sign 700 plus the 300. Enter. That is 400. Drag across. The other one will be 400. Contribution per unit. Total contribution. Total contribution, unless the other one is fixed cost. Total contribution would be contribution per unit, multiply that with units produced. Units produced. We multiply with the units produced. That will be equal sign 1500 times 400. Enter, drag across. Then total cost, fixed cost, you less the fixed cost. The total contribution is CPU, the contribution per unit, times the units produced. Units produced. Then fixed cost has been given, equal sign negative. You click on the fixed cost of 200, drag across, drag across. Net profit. Net profit will be equal sign 600 plus the 200. Then drag across. So that becomes our contribution margin statement and net profit for the products that have been given. Calculate the break-even point. So part B, break-even point. In units and revenue for both product alpha and product beta. So BEP in units is given by, so BEP in units is given by fixed cost over contribution margin, over contribution margin. Then BEP in revenue, BEP in revenue is equal to BEP in revenue is equal to BEP in units times sales price. Unit sales price per unit. Sales price per unit. So that will be equal sign product. The other one is product alpha. Drag across. Then start with the BEP in units. BEP in units. Then this will be BEP in revenue. BEP in units, then BEP in revenue. Now the BEP in units for the first one will be equal sign fixed cost. So equal sign negative, then click on fixed cost. Divide that with the contribution margin. Fixed cost over contribution margin. The answer 500. Then drag across. Then now BEP in revenue will be equal sign the BEP in units and multiply that with the sales price per unit, which is 700. This is the sales price per unit. Enter and drag this across as well. So BEP in units and BEP in revenue. Number C of the question, calculate the margin of safety. So that is margin of safety in percentage for both products, in units and in percentage. So margin of safety in units and in percentage. Now margin of safety is equal to margin of safety they wanted in units so margin of safety in units is equal to units sold minus BEP units. Units sold minus BEP units. Then margin of safety in percentage margin of safety in percentage is equal to the margin of safety margin of safety in units over units sold over the units sold, then that will be multiplied times 100. So this one here will be multiplied times 100 times 100%. For product alpha and the other product, so we have product and the other one as well, the two products. So give us the margin of safety in units. So margin of safety in units, margin of safety in units. So units sold minus BEP units, that will be equal sign. The units sold were 1500, 1500 minus BEP in units was 500. So the BEP in units was 500. Enter. The answer is 1000. Margin of safety in percentage. Margin of safety in percentage will be equal sign. The margin of safety in units, divide that with the number of units sold, which was 1500. Enter and drag across. That will be in percentage. Convert that to percentage, and that is all. 67% and 38%, two decimal places. That is 66.67 and 37.50. Number C, part of the question. Perform a sensitivity analysis by calculating how a favorable change in all product data other than fixed costs for both products affect the contribution margin and the break-even point. Okay. So we recompute, we redo what we have up there. So I'm going to pick everything that we have up here. All this is going to be picked. So Control C, paste here, paste it down, Control V. Then we have product alpha and we have product beta. Then equal sign, pick the next item should be under details. Under details, we have units produced. Enter. Drag down. Variability is 10% change, 10% favorable change. So we have change, favorable change on parameters, which is 10%. Favorable change on all parameters is 10%, except fixed cost. Now, if units produced are favorable, it means they are increasing. If units produced are favorable, it means they are increasing. So that will be equal sign. This will be equal sign. Then move up. Click on the units of 1500 here at the top, 1500, then times, open bracket, 1 plus 10%, just 1 plus 10%, 1 plus 10%. So D27, bracket 1 plus 10%, that gives me 1650, drag that across. $16.50. On the units produced. What about a favorable change on selling price? Favorable change on selling price will be equal sign, go to selling price. This is the selling price of 700 times, open bracket, 1 plus 10%. A favorable change in selling price for the business, it means the selling price increased. And that now increases to 770. Then drag across. Variable cost reduced. Favorable change in variable cost, it means the costs reduced. So that is equal sign. Then click on the 300 times, open bracket, 1 minus, now 1 minus 10%. 1 minus 10%. 270, then drag across. Get the contribution margin, alt equal, by selecting the 2, then alt equal. That becomes our contribution margin. Then get the total contribution, that is contribution, the sales units produced times the contribution per unit. Our fixed cost was not to be affected. So fixed cost remains constant, that is equal sign. Pick the fixed cost as above, 200,000, enter, drag across. So it should be equal sign negative, remove the negative because the other one is already negative. The other one is already negative, so don't negate it again. Fixed costs were not to change. The net profit, this becomes our net profit. And we want to see now how will that impact contribution. So how will that change impact contribution margin and the break-even point? Contribution margin and the break-even point. Change in contribution margin, change in contribution margin, change in contribution margin. Or perhaps we can get BEP, no, change in contribution margin first. Previous or old contribution margin, old contribution margin. Go up and take the old contribution margin, which is 400, old contribution margin. So the other one was 400, 400. New contribution margin. What is the new contribution margin? Equal sign, click on 500, then 500, 500, of course. 500 and 540, the other one is 540. Get the change. Now the change is increasing. That would be 500 minus 400. 500 minus 400, you can see it's increasing by 100. The other one is also increasing by 140. Sensitivity in percentage. Sensitivity in percentage. Now sensitivity in percentage will be the 100, remember it's positive, divide by the old one, which is 400. 100 divided by 400, that is 0.25. So that's a percentage increase of 0.25. The other one is a percentage increase of 35%. So this is change in bracket increase. Sensitivity in percentage is 25 and 35. So that gives us the analysis of the change. What is the impact of favorable change on parameters on contribution margin? Break-even point. So change in break-even point in BEP in units, change in BEP in units, old BEP in units, the new BEP in units, new BEP in units. Now the old one, BEP in units is 500, drag across to get the other one for the other product. New BEP in units, the new BEP in units will be equal sign, negative, fixed cost over contribution per unit, over the contribution per unit, and you're getting 400. Drag across, the other one is 555. We can put this to one decimal place, 556. Change, this one looks like a decrease. So change in bracket decrease, decrease, 500 So it has decreased by 400 minus 500. This one is a decrease to 100. 100. Drag across, the other one is decreasing by 195 to 1 decimal point. We get 194. Change, which means BEP has decreased in units. Sensitivity in percentage. Sensitivity in percent. Saying that sensitivity will now be equal sign, the 100. Divide that with 500, the old one, then enter, drag across, convert that to percent, and we can center. That is change in BEP in units. Lastly, change in BEP in revenue. Change in BEP in revenue. Old BEP in revenue, then new BEP in revenue. Old BEP in revenue and new BEP in revenue. The old one was old BEP in revenue, $350 and $675. This is $350 and $675. New BEP in revenue will be equal sign, the new BEP in units, times sales price, the new sales price per unit, which is 770 up there. That will give us 308. Drag across to get the other answers. Change, which is decreasing. Then sensitivity in percent, which is also decreasing. Now change will be equal sign, the new one, 308, minus the old one, 42, drag across. Then sensitivity in percent is the change, divide that with the old BEP in revenue, and that is 0.12%. So it returns 0.12%, which will be dragged across. So that is what was needed in that question to carry out a sensitivity analysis to see how a favorable change in those variables except fixed cost is going to affect contribution margin and break-even point, both in units and also in revenue.